Welcome back, folks. I am Nelson Noble here for a look around the Big Ten here on the Maize Blue review. And let's jump into what I saw this weekend, whether it's who impressed me, who disappointed me. I'll have three of each, and we'll just go over some scores and, sort of what happened here. So let me jump over real quick. Let's see. There we go. And okay, so here we are. This is my story. Really, it was punctuated, I'd say, by the Ohio State Notre Dame game. How could it not be? You thought maybe, hey, a performance from Penn State, Iowa, that could have been something. Nope, 31-0. Iowa couldn't put up a point. So let's get into it a little bit here and see exactly what happened. So Michigan, Rutgers, no surprises there, frankly. Michigan, my prediction was 31-10. And they showed out and pretty much did that. 31-7, struggled to start a little bit, looked a little shaky early, and J.J. McCarthy settled in, played fine. Blake Corum almost went for 100 yards, and Rutgers really only had one play that was score-worthy besides a field goal that they missed, a longer field goal. And then Ohio State, Notre Dame. I didn't get to catch all of that game. I caught, a little bit early and then a good chunk of the end there of that second half. And really, Notre Dame lost. They lost this game. Ohio State went out there and made the winning plays when it mattered. But I think Notre Dame lost this game, and we'll get into a little bit of why. I think Ohio State was able to take over at the end on that drive and win. Props to Kyle McCord. I've been saying he's a top 5 quarterback in the conference all year long, and he showed that again. Now, he didn't play great, but he made the winning play. Sometimes developmentally, especially early on, if you can just, that's what impresses me most is if, hey, I'm not putting it together everywhere yet, but I'm able to go drive down and win the game for my team in the final moments and make a throw like he did at the goal line as seconds, are ticking off the clock. So props to him. Hard to say, what they would have been without TreVeyon Henderson. He's my player of the game for them with 14 carries, 104 yards, and a touchdown. But then Penn State, Iowa, moving on to them. Aller, there was really nobody that stood out particularly, but those 4 touchdowns, impressive. Aller's efficiency, pretty good. But Penn State's defense was top notch. Their offense did not have to do much to win that game, and 4 fumbles recovered, I believe. There might have been a couple more forced on top of that weren't recovered. And Cade McNamara looked bad. Brian Ferentz, I'll say it again, needs to get fired. I mean, this guy is really hurting his team because they have some talent on that offense. They have some good running backs that their offensive line isn't the worst. Like, even if Iowa has an off year for offensive line play, it's not going to be that bad. So, Iowa has a lot to figure out. I don't know if Kirk Ferentz is going to ride the ship, the sinking ship with Brian Ferentz offensively at least, or if he's going to fire his son. That's going to be the hard decision to have midseason. I think, it's hard to argue for someone to get fired midseason, but that's where I'm at right now. I think Iowa has to do it if they want to have a chance to push for the Big Ten West, or some really wholesale changes need to be made there. Wisconsin is my guy, my team that I think is sort of the one who's going to emerge and take the Big Ten West. Don't love anybody there right now. We go into the year and we're thinking so many teams could win it. Now, Wisconsin, Iowa, if they figure out their offense, Luke Altmaier had a good game. Can he continue that? And maybe Illinois, but Illinois only beat FAU by 6, so who knows there. But the running game is there. Braylon Allen's there. It's gonna be there. It's gonna be like that all year. And no surprise, he went 16 carries for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, the Maryland-Michigan State game. We're gonna get into Michigan State in a little bit here, but Maryland defensively played a pretty good game. Michigan State looked relatively uninspired. Maryland, they're my 4th best team in the conference, and right behind Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. And I'll have my power rankings out later this week on Thursday, and that order will be revealed for the top 3. But Maryland's my 4th team. Don't love that there's not a clear cut, very good 4th team. Usually the tiers are pretty separated and very clear, but Maryland could build into something and become a team that pushes for that 9 or maybe even 10 wins. If they surprise one of those Big East teams, who knows, right? But I'm thinking a 9-win season, 9-3, maybe 8-4 if they slip. That's their window. If they slip a game here, 8-4. If they play well above their expectations and upset Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, they could get to 10. Illinois, FAU is not the worst non-Power 5 opponent, but Allmeyer played good, which is, a start for something defensively. They played fine. And then, a shocker of a game. If you were watching, this must have been, I didn't get to catch the game. Must have been one of the best games of the weekend easily. Northwestern, Minnesota. Northwestern came back by down 21 points in the fourth quarter. They were down 21 in the first half as well, to win 37-34 in overtime on the back of former Cincinnati quarterback Ben Bryant, my most impressive player. He threw for almost 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. And so, very impressive game from Northwestern passing and offensively. But that program, I'll eat my words. I thought Northwestern would struggle to get to 2 wins, and here they are sitting at 2-2. So props to them. Don't know if that'll continue, but not totally surprised. Minnesota was the one who blew a game like that after how they played against Nebraska, and squeezing that game out. But it is what it is. And then Indiana, Akron. Indiana, I have no thoughts about. Cam Camper, good game, but realistically, Indiana didn't look very good, and Akron's not a good team. And Indiana now, with Northwestern maybe playing some better football without Pat Fitzgerald, obviously, maybe Indiana's the worst team in the conference, right? So we'll see about that. But Ben Bryant, so he was with Cincinnati 4 years. In between there, he had 1 season at Eastern Michigan. He was trying to find a home, a place where he'd play a lot, and now he finds himself at Northwestern. And he threw for almost 400 yards, 396, and 4 touchdowns. He led his team to a victory, had an 80-yard score to Bryce Kurtz. His top receiver of the game had 10 catches for over 200 yards. And Northwestern, never thought I'd say they have a lethal passing attack. Last time I can remember they had a great passing game, maybe Clayton Thorson 5 6 years ago, somewhere in there, 4 5 6 years ago. Thorson had a little bit of a run in the NFL. I don't think he's on a team anymore, but Ben Bryant, great job for him, a 6-year player, really showed up and, made his mark as much as you can in a year that's, sort of out the door for Northwestern. And now Darius Taylor, he's made this list before. Taylor, true freshman. Now, this is not his first time, approaching 200 yards, but he ran the ball 31 times, 198. He's had games of 138 and 193 before. And Taylor is someone to watch out for as it relates to breaking records in the conference, right? So Taylor, I think, has a shot at breaking some freshman records. It'd be interesting to see, definitely at Minnesota. But Big Ten freshman records are hard to break. So he'd have to be on the with these 140, 100, almost 200-yard games consistently, which you're not going to do against a defense like Michigan, who they do play later in the year. And so, but still, Taylor is someone to watch. As it relates to guys who could emerge, maybe not just this year, but later in the Big Ten, as the sort of team that. Or as a sort of player, so as I change that banner there, who could become the top rusher in the conference, really. You see guys come in like Trayvon Henderson, Mayan Williams, obviously Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, Braylon Allen's there, Ches Malusi, but all these guys are upperclassmen. So, he comes into his junior season, maybe makes a leap from sophomore to junior year, and Taylor's pretty electric. So he has something to work with there. And we talked about this a little bit now, moving on to Penn State's defense. So Iowa, brutal offensive game. They didn't even reach 100 total yards. If you include special teams yards from kick and punt returns, which they didn't return a kick, but they had a punt return for 15 yards, right? So they put up 76 yards of total offense, 40-something of which was Cade McNamara throwing the ball, who has not looked good this year. In an offense, again, like I said, has been retooled. They've added players. They've added guys. They've brought in Eric All. They've brought in these running backs and a couple receivers. And, you'd think they'd have something there. It's schematics, I think. I think more than anything, McNamara was not efficient, but, and Penn State's defense played very well. So let's turn to that. Let's give them a positive note. This is supposed to be those who impress. We'll get to Iowa's defense or Iowa's offense a little bit more. But Penn State's defense 2 straight weeks has shown up big time. Illinois and Iowa, 2, somewhat tests. It's your first 2 conference games, and I'm impressed. I think Penn State is fighting for that top spot in the conference right now. At least they've got the momentum in my power rankings. I'll discuss all of that here, but I'm impressed by Penn State's defensive play, both in their secondary last week, and then they had 4 forced fumbles this week. But here we go. Iowa's offense has made those who disappointed again. The Hawkeyes, Kirk Ferentz, sinking ship, as I talked about. My thoughts are: will he bite the bullet? The inevitable bullet of firing his son mid-season or at the conclusion of the 2023 campaign, or will, like the Titanic or like any sinking ship back in the day, just go down with it as a captain should? It was the idea at the time, and maybe still is. I don't know, but yeah. So it's something to think about as they only put up 20 yards on 17 carries running the ball. The offensive line couldn't make a hole, and Penn State's linebackers and defensive line showed up. So props to them again. Penn State looks very good. Iowa offensively does not look very good. The fact that Iowa's defense held Penn State to 31 points, I'm not mad about. Your offense turns it over 4 times. That's not bad. So their defense is still, I'm not down on it at all. It's just when your offense can't do anything, like, you put your defense in these short yardage situation or short field situations, or, they're on the field a lot. And that's pretty much what happened. Iowa barely moved the ball. So moving on. So Minnesota's defense embarrassed, just like Iowa's offense was to some degree. Minnesota's defense, the Golden Gophers, again, like I said, blew that 21-point lead. And you give up 200 yards to a receiver, 400 yards passing to Northwestern. Again, I don't think there's been some sort of revolution at Northwestern for this to happen. I think it was really just a misjudgment by Minnesota. For a team that hasn't played that great, it kind of felt like to me they came into that game with the mindset that they were just going to run over Northwestern and it wasn't going to matter. And especially once you get up that big, they sat back and they relaxed and they said, all right, that's all, folks. And then like you're playing Madden with your buddies, you got to sit up real quick and say, all right, time to lock in. And when they decided to lock in, it was too late and they blew their lead, and Northwestern had all the momentum and they were on their heels. So Minnesota's defense did not look good. They were supposed to be one of the better defenses, at least some people thought in the conference coming into this year. They have some depth and a lot of returning players and hasn't looked great so far. We'll see how that goes. But Michigan State as a whole. So, you lose your head coach and for a reason that's totally valid. And honestly, it's gross of Mel Tucker, but he might be fired here shortly. We'll see if the 30-day transfer portal window opens up for players as the school has already tried to get that process started of him being fired. But this team looked relatively uninspired. They're missing players. And, Noah Kim played one of his worst games of his career at Washington. He comes back, with a chance to redeem himself a little bit against Maryland, a Maryland team that, hey, like maybe you can move the ball on a little bit here. And he went 18 for the 32, 190 yards, touchdown, but 2 picks, and was benched for Caton Hauser, who didn't look great, but he, whatever. He beat Hauser out in the offseason for the job. And, Nathan Carter was the only guy that I really thought showed up for the Spartans and looked good. He had a fumble, but he ran for almost 100 yards on about 5 yards per carry. And Carter was maybe the only bright spot. But like I talked about that portal window, like Carter could be leaving. He could be one of those guys that says, hey, I'm a sophomore. I got plenty of career in front of me here. I got 2+ years. I don't know if he has a red shirt or anything in there, but I got to look and find somewhere that's going to use me and where I'll be looked at. But he could also say, hey, I picked Michigan State. I'm in it for the long haul. Let's finish off this season and let's see where things go. So it will be interesting to see who decides to stay and who decides to leave. But, Michigan State, it's grim for the rest of the 2023 season for them. I don't see it getting better. Maybe they win a couple games, but, as soon as this firing happens and officially happens, we'll see these players transfer, and I'll be very interested to see how that works out. I think there are a few players Michigan might want to go after: By Joe, Dylan Tatum, 2 of them, Malik Carr. Really, these are just like guys that, would be talented enough to play on Michigan's team. But, to wrap it up here, things are sorting themselves out now, right? We're at week 4. We're concluding week 4. As we move into week 5, we're seeing Big Ten play. We're seeing teams play. But, there's still a lot of season left. So you're still about a third of the year or 2/3 of the year to go, a third of the year in. Plenty of games to play in conference, plenty of things to sort out. As Penn State, Ohio State surge, Michigan sort of just looks like Michigan, which is a good thing, so to speak, for them, as if it were 2021 or 2022, based on the way that they ended their season. So the idea is they progress into that again. And then Purdue, Minnesota, Michigan State, all sort of dropping off the map for me. Nebraska, I didn't talk about them today, but Heinrich Haarberg, hey, there might be something there with him as a runner. So they might have a little bit of some ground to gain, maybe here, in the middle of the pack, and maybe they can surge for a 6-win season. But that's all I got for you, folks. So we're going to wrap it up here, and I appreciate you guys giving me a listen, a watch here on the Maize Blue Review. I'm Nelson Hubbell. I got my daily segment, Nelson's Nuggets, here on YouTube, on all platforms for you guys to check out. It's just 1 minute of me discussing a hot topic in the Big Ten, usually or really about Michigan football, and sometimes across the Big Ten every day. So that's out every day, and I got plenty of articles. I got my power rankings coming out on Thursday, so take a look at those. But we'll be back here next week here on the Maize Blue. I'm Nelson Hubbell, and thank you for watching, folks.